Good job.
Thanks. Good afternoon. Welcome to Senate Education, Thursday, March 2nd, 4:18 in the afternoon. Of course, if you're following legislative work, we've been delayed by a long floor debate. So what I want to do is just touch base and sort of do some air traffic control updates, where things are, where they're going. We will have to meet, of course, tomorrow afternoon for a while since we missed everything today. We will postpone some things until we get back, but I do want to keep us focused on voting on school construction tomorrow. Hopefully wrapping up, getting close to voting miscellaneous ed, and getting close as possible to also moving our school safety bill. We also owe our friends in health and welfare pre-K study language, which again, we didn't get to today, but we do have various parties meeting outside of the building and they will bring forward language tomorrow. So with that, we do have 10 minutes before Ms. Barbic has to no longer be with us, but we do have her for a few moments, and I want to be able to return to and just get some general comments. Dee, thanks for joining us. We know you're going to be joining us again, I believe, tomorrow.
I haven't seen a schedule for tomorrow, so I'm not aware of that, but I can be.
All right. Well, tell us, you've seen now a new draft based on. Hold on 1 second. Let me just think about this, how I want to do this. Hayden, is Beth with us tomorrow on things? Can you just check her availability?
On a variety of things, she is.
She is. Okay, so she will be around. I don't want to confuse any issues right now, but I would appreciate any overall comments or thoughts you might have. I don't want to go back to line by line sorts of things with 10 minutes, just doesn't feel right to the process. But if you could just give us some kind of an overview of the direction we're moving in based on yesterday's discussion, and then we'll hear from Dan and hopefully Secretary French, hopefully you again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've been looking at draft 6.1, which was posted earlier today, and I did have just two small changes. Page 2, line 3.
1 second, let's all get our copies. They are in our folders. There we go. 6.1. Okay, what page?
Page 2.
Yep.
Line 3, just about halfway or a little bit further down, where after options-based response drills, I'd like to insert and fire drills in there at each school site in the fall. I just want to be crystal clear that we aren't eliminating fire drills.
Right.
So I just want to be clear that, so I wanted to address that there, and it's the same thing, same page, but line 18, about 2/3 of the way down, same wording, just insert and fire drills in there.
I remember I thought we had already addressed fire drills, but maybe we missed it in those sections. Maybe we did it in another section.
I remember we had the discussion about it, and I just feel like we need to be clear. As I read it, I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of just the average person reading this. It appears to me at face value that we only have to do options based, not fire drills. So I just want to be really clear that we aren't eliminating the fire drills as part of the requirements. The language now does refer to the guidance provided by the Vermont School Safety Center and the crisis planning team. And that guidance does indicate what months of the school year various drills have to be conducted. But I just feel like it would be very clear if we added and fire drills in the language.
I'm not seeing any objection from the committee. Okay, we'll do that.
So in terms of language, those were just the two small changes that I wanted to recommend. And then on some of the testimony yesterday and the day before, I think it was the day before, I just wanted to clarify, and I think Greg Marino did a great job with his testimony. I listened to it late last night, and I just wanted to clarify a couple things. One is that the behavioral threat assessment team and the school crisis planning team are two separate teams in his school, in his district, and they do two different things. So I just wanted to clarify that, so there wasn't any confusion that the planning team doesn't do threat assessments, nor does the threat assessment team do the work that the planning team does. And then
is there anything in 6.1 that concerns you based on that distinction that you just made?
No, I just wanted to clarify.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And I also wanted to clarify too that in the language under the behavioral threat assessment teams, where we identify those individuals that need to be part of the team, and law enforcement is one of those individuals. I just wanted to clarify that is just on the threat assessment team. It's not creating like school resource officers, or that police officers will be in the school on a regular basis. It's just that they would be part of the team if an assessment indicates that there is some criminality in the behavior. So, for example, the Jack Sawyer case from 2018 or 2017, 2018, that would be an example where you would want law enforcement to be involved in that threat assessment. But on the other hand, if you had an assessment that involved a student who was threatening self-harm, there's no, just given that basic, there wouldn't be any reason for law enforcement to be involved in that particular assessment. So again, I just wanted to clarify that this isn't introducing like SROs in every school, or that there's a constant presence of police in the schools. It's just that when necessary, if there is some criminal element in a behavior or action, that they are there to consult with on that.
So as it's written now in the bill, it is a member of law enforcement is there no matter what. Are you saying that sometimes that person may be brought in, sometimes that person may not be brought in?
Correct.
Okay.
So if there isn't a criminal element in the threat, and I use the example of self-harm, very often there isn't a criminal element to that, so there wouldn't be a need to have law enforcement on that particular threat assessment in that particular instance. And then the last thing is I put I provided a couple of documents to Hayden to post in the documents folder. And one of them is the guidance that is provided to Vermont schools in conducting threat assessments, and is part of some documentation that's provided through the training they receive through ONTIX. So I asked Hayden to post that so you could refer to it and see basically what the guidance is for doing the threat assessments. And again, I think Greg did a fantastic job yesterday really outlining that process. And then there's another document that I provided that shows the difference between MDRs and threat assessments, and explains both and does some parallels to how they are different from one another, and they are two very different processes.
Yes, and we have those documents in our packet. Thank you, and thank you for providing them to Hayden. Senator Weeks was mentioning language. We already have I'll let Senator Weeks ask this question, because I think we have
Dean, you mentioned that law enforcement wouldn't necessarily be involved in all the threat assessment teams. Just wondering if it's appropriate if you could introduce a sentence that modifies the current language to make it clear.
So just to clarify, not that they wouldn't need to be part of the teams, that they wouldn't be part of every single threat assessment. So in other words, they'd be a part of the team when necessary, if there's a criminal element in the threat.
So right now, if you look at version 6.1 on page 4, line 17, it talks about administrators, mental health professionals, school counselor, a nurse, and local law enforcement officials.
Mhm.
So you're saying, so there's no change to that. You're saying that they are going to be part of the team, but they may not be always needed.
Correct. And the same may be true, for instance, for a school nurse. We think it's important to have them as somebody who's a core member of the team, but there may be a threat assessment where the nurse is not necessarily needed in that assessment, but we want to have the ability to have them be part of it if needed.
Well, again, just for clarity, I agree with everything you're saying. I get it. It's just that, so when it says, page 4, line 16, when it says composed of at a minimum, when the flare goes up and everybody, they call for the threat assessment team, all these people are going to come unless we allow, so again, because at a minimum, unless we allow some flexibility, that there be an optional clause, something that says such members are optional based on circumstances or words to that effect. I'm just trying to draw out of you, a modification to that sentence that allows us, that you're happy with, that allows us to move forward. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify that. I do think, having heard some of the testimony yesterday and hearing committee members' questions and comments, I think if we could get in there something along the lines of, and I think largely the concern might be the law enforcement officials, if needed, when needed, or recognizing a line in there saying, recognizing that all of these individuals will not be part of every meeting, some kind of flexibility there, I think would be important for the committee to consider.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. The wording is exactly out of the training and the guidance that we receive through ONTICS and best practices. So these are the core members as identified in best practices.
Okay, Senator Williams,
Just,
please.
thank you. As long as the police officers know that they're part of the team and they're involved in any drills or training, because they don't know they're part of the team, they won't show up.
Right.
And it does stipulate in terms of the training that all of the members of the team have to be trained annually. So that would obviously include the law enforcement as well.
I'm sorry, Senator Gulick. See your hand there. Yeah.
We had talked about making bias training part of the recurrent training. Are we still thinking about putting that in? And Dee, I'm wondering what you would think about that.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I would run it certainly by Secretary French, but I'm not opposed to adding bias training as part of it.
Yes, I'm glad.
Again, I would run it by, Secretary French, before going on record that, yeah, well, let's go ahead and do that. I do want to confer with him, but I don't see it from my perspective as being an issue.
Yes, thank you, Senator Gulick. I'm really glad you remembered that. And I thought we had directed Ledge Council to put that in there. I too don't see it in there right now. But I will loop back to her in an email and copy you and ask her to include that.
I think Mr. Chair, I think I know what you're referring to. And if I recall, it's the wording that was added related to, see if I can find it, to the training. Sorry, it's gonna take me a minute to find it. Yeah, there was something about wording, and of course now I can't find it, but it was added, but it wasn't, what Senator Gulick was referring to. It was a different, the wording was different.
Feel free to bring that back to
Oh,
us.
here it is.
Okay.
It's on page 2, and I think it was related to the trauma-informed best practices. And that was added. I'm thinking that may be what you were recalling. And that was something that superintendents and principals, I think, asked to be inserted. So on page 2, line 8.
But that does not, unless, are you referring to Senator Gulick's question about bias training?
No, I think what, when you had said you thought that there may have been some wording discussion about that in the past, I was just thinking that you were referring to the trauma-informed best practices, which was a recommendation that the superintendents and principals had recommended. We did put that in, but not the bias training was not anything I recall seeing in any of the drafts.
Right. So we will ask Ledge Council to add that, and she's going to take us through a new version tomorrow. Anything else from you at this point, Dee? We really appreciate you being with us. We know you're also running late to another appointment.
No, I'm all set, and I will just look at the schedule for tomorrow and assume I'm back at some point to see you then.
Great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Committee, anything else for today? Okay, then we will see everybody tomorrow at 1. Probably gonna lose Hayden tomorrow at around 3, but we will keep going until we've got everything cleaned up and organized. Yes, Senator Gulick.
Do you foresee the floor being long tomorrow, like it was today?
I don't personally, because we're starting at 11:30, and I think things are sort of in pretty good shape. So, but I'm guessing we get off the floor in an hour, 12:30 latest, my gut. And then if we could get in here, what time are we getting in here?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. So maybe we eat our lunches in here and just start to vote and finalize and get ready for our week off and really get everything tidy. I'll check with the pro tem also, Senator Gulick, about that and let Hayden know if he says otherwise in terms of length of time, and he can send something out to the committee.